Hey guys, Cloud here, and I'm back with sort of a more casual video, just, going over another devlog. I know it's been 4 months since the last one. I did do a live stream in between, but obviously that's not a video, so a lot of you didn't get to see it. So we're just going to go over some of the things that I added to this COD game, which is based off of one that I had about a year and a half ago on the server, but there's obviously a lot of changes to the editor mode that is very powerful. So some of the things I added, well, I guess we'll go over some of the more cool stuff first and then go into the technicals. So I added the PackAPunch machine, which doesn't have 3D models yet. And PackAPunch, we decided to use a enchantment glint this time around. Before we had custom textures, but we decided that not using textures is not too detrimental to the overall gameplay, and it also saves us by having our amount of texture space we need for the weapons. So there's still some bugs obviously, but PackAPunching, you put the item in, it goes down. When it's at the bottom, it gets enchanted, it comes back up, and you grab it out. And you have your weapon. And it has different stats than before. So this one has a bigger clip size, but the stats are, not definite. So that's kind of the PackAPunch. Now, another thing that I did is I completely reworked all of the code. This is a little bit more technical. I reworked all the code involving wall bangs. So you still can do them, but I reworked the code so that it's more efficient, so less laggy. And then I also added, if you see this guy down here, a new thing in the editor menu for custom enemies. And this is what we did on stream. So the custom enemies are a way to add kind of like hellhounds. So in this case, we have our own version called yeeters. So these are yeeter creepers, and yeeters have a wave interval of 4, so every 4 rounds they spawn. They have a max deviation of 2, which means that they could spawn at around 4, 5, or 6. They have an HP multiplier of 200%, meaning whatever health the zombies are supposed to have, they have double. They have a spawn chance of 50%, so every time it tries to spawn a zombie, but that is a yeeter, it has a 50% chance of actually spawning something or spawning nothing, if I choose independent. If I choose independent no, then there's a 50% chance it spawns a zombie or a 50% chance it spawns a creeper. So independent just basically means, is this, when they come, is it a round on its own, or are they just an additional type of enemy in the round? Locked is one that isn't quite coded yet, but it's supposed to be like, does this thing spawn after something happens? So for example, in a lot of maps you have crawlers that spawn after you do the Easter egg. Alright, so let's go ahead and play one little short game with the yeeters. Let's go into game mode adventure and run function COD game setup and do scoreboard players set as player 1. There's still no audio in particular, so we're just going to be fighting them. There's no like round music yet. There's a lot of polishing I need to do with like audio and display, but I'm mainly working on the functionality. So the zombies come out of the ground, kind of pop up. If you haven't seen this before, they kind of crawl out of the ground, and we should get the yeeter wave in pretty quickly. I'm just going to buy the mystery box to make this go by faster. There also is some bugging with the 3D model for certain guns. Oh, do not go down. Okay, this should be easier now. Double points. I've had some bugs with the M1911 in particular, and especially like right when the game starts. So I think there's some weird stuff going on with the game setting up, but I don't have any more bugs like mid-game. It's pretty stable later on, so I think there's just some scoreboards that I'm not making sure are set to something. Or maybe the item that gets given to the player in the loadout is messed up. But overall, it's pretty good, and you can see the gameplay is pretty nice here. The damage indicators are going to be invisible eventually, once I fix that. So this is wave 4, so we should get creepers, aka yeeters. Oh, yep. Oh, okay. So yeah, these are just, they're beefier than zombies, you can tell. Obviously there's some gameplay differences, and you can see the zombie number ticking down, but none of them spawning. That's just because there's a 50% chance that it spawns one each time it tries to spawn a zombie. Ooh! Oh, get out of here. Alright. Points haven't really been balanced either. But that's the yeeter round. So let's do editor/start. And clear everything from me. Okay. So that's all I wanted to show you in terms of custom enemies. We'll be doing some like real ones soon. Those are just for fun. Then the last thing that I added most recently is parts and builds. So this is actually a really interesting thing, and it took a lot of work to get done because it doesn't really use entities. These entities are really just placeholders. So when I put a part down, I put a part in its hand. Now in the actual game, we'll be putting probably an item with a 3D model with custom information on the item. Now if I do data get storage COD PVE constructor, and you wouldn't do this as a player working on a map, but I'm just showing how it works. But every time we add a new part, it adds onto an array, and every time we edit a parts item in there that they're holding, the item gets changed in the array. So it says netherite. If I swap it, now it will say stick. So we also can have multiple of these, and they will not conflict with each other. So here's another part, and I'll give him a diamond. And if I do this, you can see there's one part, ID 24, that has a diamond, and ID 23 has a netherite scrap, and they don't overlap. Okay, so this is how you make parts, and I still have to code like players being able to obtain the parts by clicking signs and making sure that the parts get returned if the player gets downed. All those kind of details I have to make sure. But I did the build, which was another aspect of it, so I decided to work on that. So builds work similar to parts, except they have a list of parts. So if I give a stone axe and I check out the builds, you'll see that again, you have an item that's a stone axe, but there's also this empty array called parts, and that's gonna fill up with parts. We can also have a second one, and quite clearly, they can be independent, and there can be 2 of them. And there could be 3 of them or 4 of them. And if I break one, it won't delete the item in the array elements until I make another. Each time you make one, it verifies whether or not those build pieces exist in your world as entities, and if they don't, then it deletes the array. Otherwise, you would have kind of like an infinitely stacking amount just because somebody tries to move something. Anyways, so editing builds are very easy. So you can click to place a part, and clearly there's no parts, and it's 0 out of 0. So nothing happens, but I can go in the chest and I can put parts. It doesn't matter where you put them. So I put them in there, and now it says 0 out of 3. Nice. Okay. So what this means is I can build this by putting parts inside. So if I right click with a diamond, it'll say 1 out of 3. I could right click with a diamond. Oh, it gets reset each time because we're in creative. You have to be in adventure to test it. All right. So now I can't do anything. I can do that now. Still nothing. If I give myself a diamond, I can't put the diamond because there was already one in there. And then I can put the stick. And when I put all 3 of them, it gives me the item that was in his hand, and it sets the block here to a barrier, and it looks a little bit different if you're actually testing it. So let's go ahead and do function COD editor construct/start. So if we're in the construct start, this will reset everything, and it actually puts the items that were saved back into the chest for you to move and edit if you want. So if I want to, what I can do is I can run construct/end. And this is typically what will happen when you exit editor mode. When you enter like the play mode, it'll run this command, which will make it look like this. So this is what it looks like when you actually play the game. So you don't get to see what it's going to build, and you don't get to see the entity. But you can see this like lodestone, which I thought looked good for like a building look. So now if I right click this, it'll work. And once it's finished, it'll give me the item just like normal. Now it displays the item, which will become like a 3D model, and it puts a barrier there. So that's what it looks like when it's finished. But let's go back to the editor view of this. So that's the builds. The builds are pretty much complete. I just need to deal with the parts, and when parts and builds are done, then I have to deal with what the builds do. Like, do they give you the item, or do they open a door, right? So that's kind of something I have to work at. And that's pretty much everything that I have this time around that's new. I did obviously some changes to a lot of the gun code for efficiencies, but other than that, that's kind of the play-by-play for this time around. Thanks for watching, and I hope to have more for you in the near future. Peace.